get into a little bit of the how behind the work I do, especially when we are talking about addressing worthiness and dealing with imposter syndrome. So, this is my framework for integrating embodied neuroinclusion, a framework that I created out of the years of experience that I have as a complex trauma therapist and working with folks. So, this is kind of a high view of part of the process that I do with clients. And I think one of the things that historically I've had a challenge in sharing something like a framework is because my work is so highly customized to each person, and part of neuro inclusion is is the understanding that there is no one right way to do really anything. So this is a very loose framework with um, with room for customization, tailoring, and working with folks exactly where they're at and with how their brains work. Um, you might say it's expansive. One of the reasons why I love the spiral and specifically the Fibonacci spiral, the golden ratio, is because of its ever expanding nature. I think a lot of our processes occur in what I describe as like a spiral staircase experience, right? There are things in life that we can process, and then, in another season, we come back around to that same thing, but we're not exactly in the same space, right? So maybe we've moved up a level, maybe we've gone down deeper another level. So I think of so much of our process as moving up and down a spiral, right? And up and down isn't like up is not good, down is not bad. It's just different levels of work that we do. And I also want to point out that if we return to a specific issue or area of work, it doesn't mean that we failed in our process the first time. We are also not kicked back to zero, starting all over from scratch. We have experience and we have all of the knowledge and wisdom and meaning that we have gained since the last time we were at that particular issue or challenge. It just means that we are now ready to tackle another level of that work in our heart, mind, body, spirit. So the spiral, I love it. So we work from the inside out, as the arrows show. And the process I guide clients through is very simply investigate, inventory, innovate, and implement. So, what I mean by that, let's take an example. I'll use an example from my own life and work that I did when I first opened my private therapy practice several years ago, back in 2016, 2017. I definitely felt a great deal of imposter syndrome, like all the thoughts of who do I think I am to open a business and a private practice, and like what right do I have to think that I can do this, right? All of those kinds of imposter syndrome thoughts. So, one of the first things I did was investigate, where are those thoughts coming from? What is the source of those thoughts? And as I began to think through the source of those thoughts, I realized that those sources are not really trustworthy sources. They're, kind of like the National Enquirer, they're fake news sources. And so as I began to investigate where are those messages coming from, I found that the source of those messages are not really people or entities that actually care about, right? Like I don't care about society's opinion, or I don't care about the systems of oppression opinion or the patriarchal opinion that I shouldn't be doing this, right? So that helped put into perspective, right, those messages that I was receiving. If I had discovered the source of those messages being maybe somebody I respected or looked up to, I would still investigate that further and determine, is this a true reflection of me? What is the point of this messaging that this person is giving? And even if I look up to them and respect them, are they in fact a trustworthy source of information about who I am? Are they providing accurate reflection of who I am? So go through that process. The next stage of the process is taking inventory. I also like to call this truth grounding. So I for me, in that process of, feeling like an imposter with my therapy practice, one of the things that I would do, one of the exercises that I would do on a regular basis was take inventory. And that looked like I would literally stand in front of my graduate school degree, in front of my state licenses, and I would look at them and I would have a chat with myself. And I would kind of go over the inventory of everything that I did to get into grad school, everything that I did to complete grad school, everything that I did, the thousands of hours of direct client work and supervision and years of experience that I invested into getting my license, the exams that I studied for and passed in multiple states, right? The process, the hundreds of clients that I had worked with to get myself to the place where I had experience and I was specialized in the area of complex trauma, right? So that inventory, all of those things were facts. And when I listed all of those facts, I couldn't argue with them, because those facts are not just like, some nice opinion of me. Those facts are just facts. Like, can't get a therapist license out of the box of, the bottom of a box of cereal. That takes work. And I was the one who did that. And so that inventory process grounded me in the truth of all of the steps that I completed to get to that moment, which again affirmed that I absolutely did have a right to be in that moment of having a private practice and opening my doors to see clients. Moving on from that step is to the step of innovating. So as I practiced, I practice this over and over again. I would sometimes daily do this kind of quick inventory, standing in front of my degrees, looking at them as like tangible, concrete evidence. So then I began to innovate ways to integrate the truth grounding into my daily life and into the ways that I was thinking about myself on a regular basis. Some of that was strategizing. Some of that was, some of my strategy was, well, let me submit a proposal to a conference. And when that was accepted, that was another piece of evidence that I could kind of hold with myself. The next step is presenting at the conference, providing a workshop and getting feedback from people, reading that concrete feedback from people who were moved, who were changed, who grew, were challenged, who learned new things from what I presented. And also looking at the lived experience of my clients who were making movement from a place of surviving and struggle through the healing process into a place of thriving. So for me, innovating some of how to integrate this truth. Some of that was art process. Some of that was like visual art process. Some of that was writing and journaling. Some of it was talking to trusted colleagues and having open conversations with them about the different ways that we experience imposter syndrome and naming the source of that, right? As ultimately there's not really imposter syndrome. What we experience as imposter syndrome is really the effect of the systems of oppression telling us that we don't belong in places that we absolutely do belong, right? So white supremacy and the patriarchy and racism and ableism and misogyny and genderism and transphobia and queerphobia, all of these systems of oppression work to keep us feeling small and unworthy. And this work is to liberate ourselves from those belief systems to be able to experience the joyfulness of believing in our bones that we are worthy of what we have worked for. We are worthy for of what we have created. We're worthy of enjoying that. And and we are worthy of being in a season of happiness and levity and light. And that doesn't mean that, no more bad things will happen. They will happen, but we are also part of healing is learning how to embrace the good, learning how to be at peace with what is lovely and nice, right? Because complex trauma, especially, and that means like we have had recurring sustained trauma over years, sometimes decades. It teaches us how to be comfortable with trauma. The healing process teaches us how to be comfortable with joy and peace and things working out, right? So kind of got off track with the innovate stage, but yeah, those, it's all connected. Finally, the final stage is, well, the next stage is implementation. I caught myself from saying final stage because as a spiral, it just keeps going. We keep going through this process, which I'll describe a little bit more. But implementation is putting into practice the systems that we have figured out. And I love the word practice because it is a continual ongoing action that we take. I am in the practice of dismantling ableist ways of thinking. I am in the practice of being an anti-racist accomplice. I am in the practice of continually growing and learning about myself and who I want to be in the world, right? Practice is an ongoing thing. Take a look at any of the, professional musicians, professional actors, professional um, athletes, right? They continue to practice, get a gold medal. They're back to practicing. They don't stop practicing because they have achieved a certain level of success. So practice and implementation is a continual process to integrate the things that we are learning, the things that we understand, right? And in that practice, we become this next version, this next iteration of ourselves that at one point felt impossible and out of reach, right? So moving through this process and practicing not once, but making into a daily or every several days or weekly, monthly practice. That is what shifts us from where we are to where we want to be. And I corrected myself from saying implement is the final step, right? Because this spiral repeats. So to be in practice is to continue this process. When we feel like we've leveled out, return to the investigate stage and investigate. Are there other levels of this? We're using the particular example of imposter syndrome. Are there other levels of feeling of unworthiness or feeling like I don't have a right to be where I am? Are there other levels that, I can access now that I've done this work, right? Go through the inventory process, innovate ways, strategies to um, incorporate and practice those things and then implement them. So, this is an overview of the journey that I take with clients. Like I said, it looks different for each person. And when I'm working with folks, especially one on one, my work is not like class is in session and here's, here are these parts. We move through this by conversation. And for folks who do like diagrams, I definitely can provide that and worksheets. And folks who want more of just kind of a organic conversational process, we do that. But this is, yeah, these are the steps to move from a place of feeling unworthy of the success and the wealth and the prosperity that you have built for yourself, that has occurred in your life, moving from that unworthiness to a place of acceptance and believing in your bones that you are worthy of relaxing into the joy of being where you are. Stay tuned for more. See you soon.